The boy who carried dreams. Carlo was only 7 when his father packed a small bag, kissed him on the forehead, and walked out the door. There were no tears that morning. No fights. Just a quiet goodbye, and a promise that he'd be back with money, opportunities, a better life. But weeks turned into months, and months became years. The letters stopped coming. The phone calls faded. And slowly, Carlo learned that his father wasn't coming back. Their home was a tiny wooden shack on the edge of a dusty road in a sleepy Philippine village. The roof leaked when it rained. The windows were just holes with tattered cloths. But inside, his mother, Liza, made it warm. She never spoke badly of his father. Instead, she smiled, held Carlo's hand, and said, "It's just us now, Anik. We'll be okay." Carlo didn't know what okay looked like, but he nodded anyway. Early mornings and burned fingers. By the time Carlo turned 10, his morning started before dawn. At 3:30 a.m., he would rise to the sound of firewood crackling and his mother humming softly in the kitchen. Together, they steamed rice cakes, puto, to sell in the market. Carlo's small hands carefully wiped banana leaves clean. Sometimes he burned his fingers when removing cakes from the steamer. He'd wince, but never complain. Once, he said, "If we sell more today, can we buy eggs?" His mother smiled and nodded, hiding the worry in her eyes. They walked to the market with 2 woven baskets. On good days, they sold out before 8 a.m. On bad days, they returned with leftovers, and even less hope. Still, Carlo went to school, wearing a faded uniform and borrowed shoes. His teachers liked him. He was quiet but smart. But classmates often teased him. "You smell like smoke," one boy sneered. "Do you live in a garbage can?" another laughed. Carlo didn't respond. Instead, he'd look at the floor and think about his mother's hands, cracked, tired, but always working. He studied harder. Dreams in the trash. After school, Carlo didn't play. He grabbed a big rice sack and walked the streets, picking up empty bottles and crushed cans. The sun was harsh. Stray dogs barked. His back ached. But for every full sack, he earned a few pesos, enough to buy lamp oil, rice, or sometimes a piece of dried fish. One day, he found an old math book in the trash. It was missing pages and had scribbles all over it, but it was a treasure to him. He cleaned it and brought it home. That night, by the weak light of a kerosene lamp, Carlo flipped through the torn book. His mother watched him silently. "You're too young to carry all this," she whispered. "I'm strong, Ma. And one day, you won't have to work anymore. A chance like no other." When Carlo was 13, his science teacher, Mr. Reyes, called him aside after class. "There's an entrance exam for a scholarship at a science high school in Manila," he said. "If you pass, they'll pay for everything." Carlo's heart raced. Manila felt like another world, tall buildings, clean classrooms, electricity all the time. But then he remembered their empty jar of coins. I don't think we can afford the trip," he said quietly. Mr. Reyes smiled. "You let me worry about that." For the next 2 weeks, Carlo studied harder than ever. He stayed up late, practicing equations, memorizing vocabulary. He didn't eat lunch, saving the money instead. He did chores for neighbors, carrying water, sweeping yards, peeling garlic, for extra pesos. 2 days before the trip, a neighbor, Aling Rosa, handed him an envelope. "Your mother gave me food when I was sick. Now it's my turn." Inside were 200 pesos. Carlo bowed his head, overwhelmed. "Thank you, Pa." The big city. It was still dark when Carlo boarded the bus to Manila. His mother had packed a small bag, 1 shirt, a towel, and rice with salted fish. She hugged him tightly, whispering, "Do your best, Anik. No matter what happens, I'm proud of you." Carlo had never seen buildings so tall, roads so wide, or people walking so fast. He clutched his bag, afraid he might get lost or robbed. The exam was early the next day, and he had no money for a hotel. He asked if he could sleep on a bench outside the testing center, but a guard shook his head. "Sorry, kid. Rules." So Carlo wondered until he found a spot near the bus terminal. He sat against the wall, using his bag as a pillow. The ground was cold, the noise loud, and his stomach empty. But he held on to one thought: this is for Ma. The test of his life. At dawn, Carlo washed his face in a public faucet and brushed his teeth with salt. He wore his only decent shirt and walked to the exam room. Inside, everything looked shiny: clean desks, bright lights. Other kids had fancy pencils and digital watches. Carlo sat quietly, feeling small. The test began. It was hard: advanced algebra, complicated science passages, logic puzzles. At one point, his hand trembled from hunger. But he closed his eyes and pictured his mother, the early mornings, the rice cakes, the teasing, the trash bags. He whispered to himself, "You belong here." 3 hours later, he handed in his paper. He didn't know if he passed. But he knew he'd given everything. Waiting and hoping. Weeks passed. Every day, Carlo checked the mailbox near the Sorry store. Nothing. Then one afternoon, as he returned from collecting bottles, his mother came running, waving a white envelope. "It's from the school," she cried. Carlo took it with trembling hands. The envelope was thin. His heart sank. But as he tore it open, a single sheet of paper fell out. "Congratulations. You have been accepted." He stood still for a moment. Then dropped to his knees. His mother hugged him tightly, tears soaking her blouse. "You did it, Anik," she whispered. "No, Ma. We did it." The boy in the cap and gown. Years later, Carlo stood on a stage wearing a blue cap and gown. He had not only graduated high school with honors, he had received a full scholarship to study engineering at one of the top universities in the country. During his valedictory speech, he looked out at the audience and saw his mother in the front row, wearing the same blouse she wore when he left for Manila. He paused, swallowed hard, and said, "Many people helped me reach this point. But one person never gave up. She sold rice cakes. She walked in the rain. She starved when I needed to eat. And tonight, I stand here not because I'm smart, but because she's strong." The crowd applauded. His mother wiped her tears, her hands still rough from years of work, but her eyes shining with pride. And after that, Carlo went on to become a civil engineer. He returned to his village not in a suit or car, but with building plans to fix the school roof, improve the roads, and give scholarships to kids like him. People in the village now said, "That boy who picked up trash, he carried more than bottles. He carried dreams." But Carlo always shook his head and said, "No. My mother carried me."